The question I had in this segment, where do the Colts rank among enemies of Houston sports fans? Because there were lots of bad memories. I remember one day at the flagship going into work, and it was a celebratory mood as we began the show over the Texans finally beating the Colts on the road. And I remember telling them, I was like, wait a second, you guys shouldn't be celebrating this. This is more something that you just are glad it's done, and now you move on and you forget about it. But there are lots of bad memories when the Texans played the Colts. You had that playoff game with Deshaun Watson where he played like complete doo-doo, and everyone got mad at me for pointing out that he played like doo-doo. Let's play Bill O'Brien. How about pick up a blitz, doofus? Anyway, there's also this moment. The Texans had the lead here, and a quarterback who we will remember not by his last name, but by this play, had something very unfortunate happen to him.
The Houston Texans, who are looking at 3rd and 8. Rosenfeld by himself, penalty marker flies, and Rosenfeld lost the football, picked up by the Colts. This is Gary Brackett. Brackett up the sideline with blockers to the 10, the 5, touchdown.
That play was insane. I remember seeing it, not knowing that I would eventually be hosting a sports talk radio in Houston, and thinking to myself, my God, this team is a bunch of choking dogs. To lose like that in such hilarious fashion to the Colts, that sucks, obviously. And that was during that season 08, where it felt like Chris Brown was going out of his way to, much like Nigel in The Replacements, pay off perhaps bets where he had bought off more than he could chew. They're going to take me pub. They're going to take me pub. I'm Wiley.
That's a reckless thing to put on Chris Brown 15 years after the fact.
It felt like that watching it.
Okay.
Because he kept on shanking game-winning field goals.
Yeah. God, man.
There's so many bad moments.
It's also funny because you heard it on the clip. There's a flag on the Rosencopter play. It was holding. So no matter what, like Sage Rosenfeld's putting his body on the line would have been all for nothing anyway.
Yeah.
But he fumbles. It's a touchdown. So the Colts obviously declined the penalty. It's like no matter what, you're going to lose. Like at that point, you Houston Texans are going to lose against the Colts. And that's what it was for the first decade of their existence as a franchise.
A lot of it had to do with Peyton Manning. But there were other parts of it that happened during the Andrew Luck era as well. Correct. There's the Pat McAfee recovered onside kick. Like, there's so many moments over the course of this decidedly one-sided rivalry.
The 1-15 Colts beat a playoff-bound Texans.
Yes. Now, like, it was TJ Yates at that point, but I believe the Dan Orlovsky-led Colts. Man, Dan Orlovsky, the leader of a lot of wretched teams. Shout out to him. He made it to ESPN. True underdog story, getting that much airtime, you're running out of the back of the end zone and quarterbacking that team. But that's probably the best win of his career, for being perfectly honest. And
I can't imagine there's a ton of competition. He beat a playoff-bound a team that went like 11-5, 12-4.
Yeah,
he beat them with the guy for the team's only win of that season.
Fishing with Dane on the Twitch says, remember when Deshaun fumbled the snap in the red zone to lose to the Colts? Yeah. JJ Watt apologized to him after the game or something like that. It's like, actually, Deshaun blew that one too.
They wasted one of his years, dude.
Deshaun Watson, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, but the team was 4-12. Does that add up? You know, obviously we have the benefit of hindsight here, but man, this city has had some bad quarterback takes, you know, like shows in higher profile time slots, thinking Davis Mills had any talent whatsoever on this station, other stations. Man. Anyway, the Colts, they bring out the worst in us. Where do they rank, though, among Houston sports fans' hated teams? I don't think they're number one. I think there's a very obvious number one, and things have mellowed out a little bit, but the level of vitriol that Rockets fans directed towards the Warriors, in my time here, I do not think it has been matched. And that includes the Yankees and Dodgers. Because with the Dodgers, there was a couple of years of it, but I think it was more so after the cheating scandal. And I think it's the same thing with the Yankees. and the Yankees thing's been so one-sided. Like, we kind of forgot about him this year. So I just go back to that one stretch where the Warriors were so hated. People were getting mad about the way that Steph Curry wore his mouth guard, for God's sakes. Which, honestly, fair point. Like, orthodontia, it's expensive. You know? You don't... If you're a parent, that is teaching your kids bad habits. No, put the mouth guard on your teeth so you don't bust your teeth. The parents pay a lot of money for your teeth. Okay? So, don't do that. But I think number one's the Warriors among hated teams by Houston sports fans.
I think what they have going for them is a bunch of high-profile playoff matchups, which the Texans don't have against anyone, frankly, and the Astros have against the Yankees and against the Dodgers, but the Astros win those. So the Rockets not only face the same team every year, or 4 times in 5 years, something like that. They lost all of them.
Right.
They lost every single matchup
every
against
single
them.
time.
So that I think adds to the vitriol. But all the basketball rivalries, except for Lakers Celtics, I feel like are very like
muted.
In the moment. They're very like at that time, like the Cavs and Celtics hate each other best because LeBron keeps playing the Celtics. It's a bunch of stuff like that where it's not like lasting rivalry. I think the like most long lasting rivalry with at least the Rockets has been the OKC Thunder, just because of the Russ Harden MVP wars. And then
but even that one kind of
and now it's kind of sad because they're now in like a rebuilding battle where it's like which team's future is the brightest.
I think people still remember their hatred for the Utah Jazz, which
that's a good one.
Has like tremendous staying power considering Karl Malone and John Stockton haven't been there in 20 plus years. So I think the Jazz are definitely up there. I think for the Spurs, but the Spurs
they haven't played enough.
They were, in the same division. There's just something about the Spurs where they're better, but there's some boring element of them too, where I don't think people had the same hatred towards them that they had for the Warriors. And it's the same with the Mavericks too. Even though in 2005 there was the series in the playoffs, and in 2015 where Rondo quit, which was a bad look for me. It was. I loved Rondo. I was very upset with Rondo in that series. I wanted the Rockets to win, but I was very upset with Rondo in that series.
Yeah, I think what you say is right. Where like the Spurs with Duncan and Ginobili and Parker, and the Mavericks with Dirk are less easy to hate. It's harder to hate them than it is Karl Malone.
Yeah. Well, Karl Malone,
I'll just say.
Even then was easy to hate, and now, I mean, man, that he has not aged well.
I think it's harder to hate the other guys.
So someone's helping me out with my Steph Curry take here. Remember when Houston fans crushed Steph Curry's wife's restaurant? They destroyed it. I don't even remember what it was, but they absolutely ruined that with online Yelp reviews.
It really is a shame that the Texans like can't be like a competent franchise to like, because I guess they're the most hated for the Texans is either Colts or Titans, right? Mm-hmm. That's the two. Where Titans, it feels like it's more of an off the field rivalry, and Colts, it's more of an on the field rivalry. Even though they just smush us every single time.
That makes perfect sense, Sean, because the Titans, it's more about the Adams family than it is about the actual games and the dumbass fans in town who still root for the Titans. I don't know what's wrong with you. Like, I don't get it. I really don't get it. Oh, they drafted Vince Young. Like, is that what you're clinging to?
They also got rid of Vince Young in like 3 years.
Exactly. You would think that they would have turned on him as soon as Vince Young left. Some texters are bringing up some good old school National League ones. Cardinals, yes, definitely. Braves, yes, another good one. Someone texted in the Chicago Cubs. But the thing that sucks as far as like teams that you hate the most now, God, that was so long ago. I mean, we're talking like 12 years, 13 years now when we're talking about the Astros back in the National League. And we're also talking about a time like, what was it? 08, 09, was that when the decline started and Drayden McClain essentially looked like he was trying to strip off parts of the team to make it a little bit easier to sell?
I like 05 was the last time they made the playoffs until 15. But I think there was like, they're still like, obviously
Carlos
they didn't
Lee.
make the playoffs, but they're all right. The next couple years. I do think like the Cardinals are, maybe it's just like specifically like being my age, but the Cardinals are still one of the teams that I just like dislike the most.
Yeah, I understand that.
I just have and they again have not played
Pujols.
15 years, but
Right.
I still have a intense hatred for them.
So we're talking about the Houston enemies from a sports perspective that we hate the most, I think that the Warriors are number one. We do have a couple of texts in as well, too. One person said 1 Cowboys, 2 Titans, 3 Mavericks, 4 Colts, 5 Spurs. Jaguars were in there as well. Jaguars, no one cares. No one cares about the Jaguars.
My take is that the Jaguars and the Texans are like the same. Like
Yes.
there's like a common like, hey man, we're just trying to figure the whole this whole NFL thing out.
Except for the Jaguars have somehow been to a couple of AFC Championship games.
They
and
were
the
more
Texans have not
successful.
been to one. Yep, they are. There's no denying that. 1 Yankees, says another texter, 2 Warriors, 3 Cowboys, 4 Mariners, 5 Colts. That's Eric the Driver. The thing with the Yankees and with the Dodgers, it's and also I'd say with the Mariners and the Rangers, who are definitely at least worth a mention, it's so new. It's especially with those last two. I mean, it's literally less than a year old for those two. For the Rangers, like it's the first time you've cared about them in almost a decade.
Yeah, I think the Rangers have to be good like for another year or two and maybe play in the playoffs before they can like actually get into like this conversation, because so much of this conversation, which is why it's hard for the Texans to have an intense rivalry, is that it really happens in the playoffs. You know, that's where this happens, and that's why the Warriors are still so high up now. In like 5 years, when Steph and Draymond and Clay are all gone and maybe the Rockets make the playoffs again, they play someone else, it'll probably be those teams that are it'll be, I don't know, Utah and Phoenix. I don't know.
Phoenix.
Phoenix is a bad choice because they're old too.
Yeah. It's tricky. Look, you have to be good for these rivalries to really mean something while that other team is good.
And like the Rockets would have won a championship without the Warriors being there.
So I think the Warriors are number one. I think the Colts will resonate, but it's more because the Colts just like come here and burn everything to the ground like once a year.